Oh, hi, good day, Dan. You've been writing this week about the city's housing targets. We know municipalities, a bunch of them were given housing targets by the provincial government a year ago. What you were at City Hall this week? What city staff telling council?
So yeah, city staff presented sort of a year one update on where the city of Vancouver is with its completions uh, compared with the targets that were set out by the province last year. And the city had city of Vancouver had fallen short overall for what the sort of year one target was. And these targets are not for housing approvals, but for completions. So how many housing units get completed? The city had basically overall hit about, I think, 80% of the year one target, but it's kind of uneven. They exceeded the target for ownership housing, which is like houses and condos. They were short on the rental side, purpose-built rental housing, but then they were really short on the affordable rental side. So there's kind of a guideline or a goal for how many units should be under the province's housing income limits, which basically varies by geography, but it kind of sets out sort of it's below market, more affordable social housing, right? And and so they were quite below that target. I think they only hit 23% of the target. So they were 75%, 78, 77% below the target on affordable stuff. Now, the city has said, even though they were short on the year one targets, they think that they've got so much stuff in the pipeline and they expect so much new stuff to be coming in the pipeline because of new plans and new policies. They're expecting that by the end of the even though they missed their year one targets, they expect to exceed the 5 year targets. They expect to gain ground over the next 4 years and eventually exceed the 5 year targets for overall number of housing units completed. A big part of that is things like the Broadway plan. The Broadway plan applies to 500 city blocks, adding a lot of new density, largely focused on rental housing, not a lot of condos, and it's a lot of rental housing, including a significant amount of below market housing. But none of those units have been finished yet. A lot of those applications are working their way through City Hall now, but those completions won't happen until future years. Um, Only a couple of those have actually sort of are getting close to being built. So the city expects that they're going to exceed the 5 year targets, and they kind of say they're on the right track. And they say that in their conversations with Victoria, with the Ministry of Housing and Ministries of Municipal Affairs, city officials feel like they're kind of aligned with the province. Uh, but the tricky thing is these affordable units. So the city can approve all the housing that comes in front of them, but producing below market affordable rental housing is really difficult. And basically, it costs money. And the city's saying, it would cost billions to build and keep those units affordable, um, to hit the targets that the province has set out. So at the city council meeting this week, uh, that's what city staff are saying. There's like, well, we could approve all these units in theory, but it would take billions to get that level of affordability. Um, and the city just doesn't have that money. So city councilors were sort of, indicating that that's Councillor Kirby Young, Sarah Kirby Young referred to it as like an opportunity for advocacy to the province to say something like, you know, we'll approve all these units if you fund them. If BC Housing comes through with the funding, we're happy to approve them. And the sector wants to build them, but like they just need money. So whether it comes from Ottawa or Victoria or I don't know. So that's kind of where that's at.
Okay. Do you have any indication of whether Vancouver is alone in not meeting its targets or how other municipalities are doing?
Um, I haven't looked at the other year one, like the sort of first year updates, but I know that when the sort of 6 month updates came around about 6 months ago, most of the BC municipalities that were on that initial list were short. I believe Victoria was actually, the city of Victoria was the only one that was exceeding its 6-month targets. Um, and most were short at that point. Now that was just as you'll recall, there were kind of just 10 cities that were the initial ones
Right.
that got these targets in the province. The province didn't uh, impose targets on everybody at the same time. They did these 10 cities initially, and then I think there was another 20. But the idea is that it eventually applies to all larger municipalities. Um, but yeah, the initial 6-month update, most of them were falling short. I don't know where they're at now with the 12 month, but it is actually something that we want to look into and figure out where they're doing for overall numbers, where they're doing for rental, how they're doing for the affordability component, the different makeup of like 1, 2, 3 bedroom units, because all of those things are contemplated in the province's targets. It's not just pure numbers;
Right.
it's got a bunch of different um, criteria.
And I guess the next question would be, the province was threatening a big stick against those cities that did not meet their targets. And
Yeah.
Vancouver has fallen well short of their targets. So are they going to swoop in and do what they said they were going to do for failing to meet their targets?
It doesn't, I mean, I'm not sure what the province is going to do, but speaking with Vancouver's planning staff and the elected officials and stuff, it doesn't sound like at City Hall there's a big worry that that's going to happen anytime soon. Again, as they say, the overall trend is they believe that it's going to allow them to exceed the targets, even though they haven't been able to hit them now. Because keep in mind, all the units that were completed in the past 12 in that 12-month period would have been approved by previous councils under previous policies. The policies that have been approved by city council and this city council as well as the previous city council, those policies, um, those have been meant to enable more housing, especially more rental housing, but those haven't turned into completions yet. It's a lagging thing, right? So the Broadway plan being a good example, which was approved by the previous council, it was approved a number of years ago now, but it hasn't turned into a single actual completion yet. But it will eventually. It will eventually. So that's why City of Vancouver says that they feel like they're on aligned with the province. I don't know about other municipalities, but at least in Vancouver, they're not too worried about the province coming in with that stick. The other thing is that my understanding, what we heard at council this week, is that, well, there is that sort of threat or that possibility